Go. Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's Eric and Harry, and this is Lead Cell Grow. Today we have an amazing guest, Barbara Allen. Now, before I get Barbara to say anything, I really want to introduce her. She's an amazing tragedy to triumph story. On June 8th, 2005, her life was turned upside down when she learned that her husband Lou was killed in Iraq, and Barbara was left to raise her four little boys all on her own. To make matters even worse, Barb learned that Lou was killed by another soldier who ended up walking away free, and since it wasn't an action of enemy fire, the government denied Lou the Purple Heart Award. Barbara fell into complete depression. She felt self-pity, anger, resentful, and really began to spiral downward until she began to meet people and organizations who wanted to help her. And eventually, she became the resource for other veterans herself. Barb's story has been heard all over the country, and she's been interviewed and featured on USA Today, Fox News, CNN, Army Times, along with a few other media outlets. Her TEDx talk, How Patriotism Helped Me Triumph Over My Tragedy, has inspired thousands of people across the country. She's an author of 2 books, Front Towards the Enemy and How to Woo a Widow. She is the organizer and the mastermind behind a 3-day women's empowerment retreat, Train Your Pain, and she is the host of the American Snippets podcast and a really good friend of mine, Barbara Allen. So I want you guys to give a really warm welcome. If you're driving in a car, start applauding right now, because we do have Barbara Allen on the show with us today. There's Harry. Hi, Barb. How are you?
Hey guys, how it's going? I'm laughing. I mean, you almost had me depressed with that intro. I'm like, man, my life sucks, man. And then, but then I see how you can barely keep a straight face when you're saying other things. That was good. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. Welcome to the show. So our audience, they're no strangers to having a bad day. If you're listening to this show, you're probably in sales or you're an entrepreneur. You're constantly dealing with the ups and downs of just everyday life. But getting a knock on your door saying that the love of your life and the father of your 4 little boys was just killed takes the term a bad day to like a whole different dimension, Barb. Now, I didn't know you in 2005. We just met a couple of years back. So today I know you as a joker. You're super fun, loving mom. Everything you do seems like you're having a really good time. You're enjoying life with your kids, with your fiance Dave, and every possible domestic animal on the planet lives with you somehow. So walk me through, from 2005 when your whole earth shattered to this fun, awesome, happy person that we got on our show today.
Well, thank you, but be careful what you believe, because if you talk to Dave, he'll tell you the truth that I'm not always super fun to be around. Sometimes I don't even like myself. I'm like, man, Barb, shut the hell up. Like, but I give myself timeouts a lot is what I do. When I feel myself like about to come undone, I'm like, excuse me, everybody, I'm going to go like give myself a little timeout now. And depending on the weather or, what time of day, that timeout looks different. But yes, timeouts are key, I think, for me.
What does a timeout look like?
Depending if the weather is shit, which it is now in New York, it will be an indoor timeout, upstairs, whatever. But if it's nice, sometimes I grab a dog. I'm off in the woods for hours. I go back. I go kayaking or something, whatever. Sometimes there's a glass of wine involved. But
okay, but you have you're at least aware of the times you need to take a timeout, and you're
yeah. I'm like, look, I'll actually say, I'm like, look, none of you deserves what's about to happen here. I'm like, it is in everybody's best interest if I exit the premises.
Right. Check out for a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll find me in the back with the animals.
Yeah. I'll be back in a little bit, but none of you wants any of this right now.
So you're like a super vulnerable person, it appears. You have no issues about telling the downsides of your outstanding personality. I was watching the TEDx talk, and you mentioned some of the many mistakes that you've made throughout your trials. And then you're just mentioning, first thing that's really coming out of your mouth is that, hey, I'm not what I'm cracked up to be, which I love. Have you always been that transparent?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I'll overshare, so I'm trying to get a little better about that. But I don't have time. I said I wasn't going to curse, but it's like wanting to come out.
Yeah, well, feel free.
Okay.
We have the adult explicit language button switched.
Yeah, we do.
We did that.
I don't have time for bullshit, right? Like what I've learned is that there's too much just wasted time. So I'd rather somebody be straight up with me and I'm going to be straight up with you. You know, if I annoy someone, like just say, Barb, like back off, man. You're being kind of a little bitch right now. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Give me 5. I'll be right back. Like, hold please, and I'll come back. Right. Or if I have a piece of work, if I submit something to you that I'm writing or working on, you're like, like, don't be afraid. Like I'm asking you for constructive criticism. When I met Eric and we're doing our talks, I was just telling you, Harry, I'm like, the event I met Eric at, my talk was shit. I sucked. I feel like I bombed that talk, right? I wouldn't have hired me based on that talk. And Eric very nicely sort of confirmed that thought. He was like, yeah, wasn't that great. He's like, but I'm glad I saw your TEDx talk because that was good. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I value that, Yeah.
You definitely have the potential.
Don't ask me if you don't want to know.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I think a lot of people will ask you a question, not because they're interested in what you have to say, but because they want their own thoughts validated, right?
Oh,
so
absolutely.
Don't come to me to validate your thoughts. If I agree, then I will, but like, why are you going to ask? I just think it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
That's why I love Barb, Harry. I got to tell you this quick story. She's the only person that's ever done this to me. So we met in Texas at this veterans event. We were both speakers, and I gave her a copy of my book. And
oh boy.
So she's on her flight home, and I get this picture. I don't know if somebody took it or she took a selfie of her sleeping on my book, kind of like drooling on top of it, and it just said, "Yeah, real fun book."
So a few of us had that same experience, I think. That was before you changed the cover though, right?
That's right.
Because the new cover makes you stay awake throughout. I mean, it's awesome. It's an awesome cover.
I actually liked your book though. I was just messing with you.
I really appreciate it. Yeah. So Barb, tell us about that. Tell us about that transition. I know that today you might think that you're not all that that you still have your tough days, and we all do. And by the way, how long have you been an entrepreneur?
A while, I guess. I only branched out with Dave officially about 2.5 years ago to do American Snippets. But I wrote my books, I put them out. So it depends on your definition of entrepreneur. But I left my steady job 2.5 years ago to go all in with Dave on American Snippets.
Hey,
what was the job?
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Yeah. What was the steady job?
I was a veteran services officer for my county. So that's what I did. I represented veterans, filed claims, and was an advocate for them for a couple years.
So which is pretty secure. Technically what people would consider a secure job, right? So you're a mother of 4 boys. You have the secure job. You're the liaison for all the veterans that are coming through. You're helping them. And then you're like, my life is kind of boring. Let me get rid of all the security I have and just go off on my own with this podcast. Sometimes
that is a good thing. Sometimes I feel like I just recently, like in the last year or two, recognized the fact that I seem to feel a need to just create more to do. Like my husband was killed. I got 4 little kids. I moved. I'm in this new house. I'm getting ready to go to Kuwait. I stop at a friend's house. He's loading rabbits up to go to slaughter. And I'm like, what are you doing with those rabbits? He's like, they're on the market. I'm like, the fuck they are. And I came home with 14 rabbits like a week before going to Kuwait. And now I got to adopt out all these rabbits. Like I do this. And then I look.
It's called like understanding limitations, I think.
Yeah.
That barrier is not there for you.
No, it's not. And I think, I had 4 kids, so that says a lot, right? But that was my husband's idea. And then so we just do that. We just create more for ourselves. I forget the question. I'm sorry you asked.
How did you make that decision? Like, how did you make the decision to go from this safety net of the corporate world into being an entrepreneur?
So it was safe and it was good, but it got to the point that I started to question the value that I was offering because the bureaucracy was so limiting. And I felt it was a couple things. I felt like I could do more. I had learned enough to know that there were voids that we're not going to be able to be filled by filing claims, right? And I knew that my skill set and my talents were better played in the other arenas. I'm not the file the paperwork, what's this form, dot that I, cross that T, like, no, like, I hate it, the structured office setting, not being able to be available for my kids when they needed me. They were having a very difficult time with me being gone. I'm on my own. I'm like getting kids up and out the door and to feeding them breakfast and getting them on the bus and going to the grocery store and putting stuff in the cooler in the car all day and going to work all day and coming home and dinner and kids support. Like I couldn't be there when they got sick from school. I couldn't pick them up. I had to worry about that and doctor's appointments, and they were struggling with me being gone. I was an emotional kind of mess, not being able to, trying to do that all, take care of the house and the washing machine breaks and the dog throws up. And I'm like, it was exhausting. I was exhausted.
So how did you respond to the question, how are you doing today?
Better, no. I have most.
So, I mean, back in the day when all that was going on, if someone asked you, how's it going today? I mean, did you like lose your mind on them?
I would very often not answer the question. I would deflect because a lot of people just don't get it, and then there were things I was oversensitive about. Like, for instance, somebody would say to me, there was somebody whose husband worked all the time. He was in law enforcement and he was NYPD and just worked all the time. And so she had kids and she was struggling. But she'd often say to me, oh, I'm a single mom. I feel like I'm a single mom. My husband, and I'd be like, what is it? But I understood that she didn't understand, people aren't saying things to be insensitive. It wasn't, and I wasn't going to be like, what the hell,
Right.
It felt like that was how she felt. Right. And so she had no idea what it's like to, and even like people who are divorced, I'm like, man, you got it lucky, because if they're co-parenting, they got, 3 days a week without their kids that they can just focus on themselves. They split going to the orthodontist, split going this, split going there. They're not a single parent. Like, you are not a single parent unless you are the only parent.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to get into that because
it's definitely interesting though.
There's no need to dump on someone. Like their struggles are valid and real and their feelings are real. There are people who look at me and be like, I had the military benefits that afforded me some years to be home with my kids, right? I don't know what it's like to be a widow of somebody who like died in his sleep when he was 30 years old or had a car accident and was killed and my income is gone, so there's all levels of things. So we just got to like focus on our own lane and be compassionate to other people, I think, and open it. But I didn't get that for a long time. My sister would be like, how you doing, Barbara? What do you mean, how you doing? Why are you asking me how I'm doing? Is my husband not dead anymore? Like, shut up. Like, I was just, my answering machines literally said, hello, you've reached what's left of the Allens. If you really want to leave a message, go for it, but I'm probably not going to call you back. Click. And I was not okay. All right.
So that's what I was getting at. It just seemed like you have that personality to just go off a little bit. So that was where my dumb question was coming from. But obviously you have mellowed out tremendously over the past number of years here. So we appreciate that. You're not going off on us for asking the dumb question.
Barb's awesome.
Question.
You guys, you and Dave are going to record your 140th episode for American Snippets, I believe tomorrow or next week. But right now, if somebody was to search American Snippets at the time of this recording, it's 139 episodes. And I've listened to a few of your shows. I mean, you got some incredible people, Barb. You've had Robert O'Neill, the guy who killed bin Laden. You had Elena Cardone, Grant Cardone's wife. Taya Kyle, American Sniper's wife, Chris Kyle's. Patrick Bet-David, the CEO and founder of PHP Agency and Valuetainment. I mean, these names are incredible. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is every single time that we talk, you mentioned how you're not a salesperson. And I'm telling you,
taught me otherwise.
I do think otherwise. I think that you're probably one of the best salespeople I know. To be able to get meetings with these high-profile individuals takes mad sales skills, and I want to know your secret.
I want to commend you actually for having me look at all of that differently. I did pay attention when I heard your talk, and I did read your book, and I was like, man, I guess I gotta sell a little, like, I gotta stop pretending I'm not what I am. But dude, for everybody we get that says yes, we have probably 3 times as many people that say no, or just don't bother answering, or they want your stats, or they want your following, or they want to know this, they want to know that, or they just don't bother getting back to you at all. So I am surprised. There are people we go after that I'm like, this person is never going to say yes. And we send it, or Dave will send it, and he'll be like, oh, I got so-and-so. I'm like, you did? And then I'll reach out to this person. I'm like, this person seems amazing and cool and approachable. They're totally going to love what we're doing. They're patriotic, they're entrepreneur. They want to help women. They want to do this or that. I get nothing. Or we get a, just flat out, nice try. Like, like,
Oh, that's messed up.
yeah, you just got to keep going. I send video messages to people on Instagram.
What do you say?
Hey, my name is Barbara Allen. I have co-host American Snippets. I see that you do X, Y, and Z. You have a patriotic mindset as well. Thank you for spreading your message. We have a largely patriotic entrepreneurial spirit community. We're all about Americans first and patriotism. We'd love you to share your message. I'm going to send you the link, blah, 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 whatever it is. 9 times out of 10, I get nothing. I get like crickets, or, I'll send it. But then you just go to the next person,
That's right. And
by the way, circle back and I'm like, hey, it's been 3 months. Thought I'd check back in. We're all in lockdown. What do you got going on? I know you're home. Come on.
And by the way, that's one of the things I super admire about you, because when we were speaking a couple of days ago, you've been fighting for your family to receive Lou's Purple Heart Award since, I'm assuming, 2005.
Yeah, a little after that, yeah.
So almost 15 years, fair to say. And you got good news recently, correct? That they're finally doing it?
It is not anywhere near confirmed yet, but what we have is we are further than we've ever gotten. Typically, like, so when I first realized that he didn't get the Purple Heart, it barely registered because there was so much shock and trauma. And I think it was at the cemetery where my CAO said again, you're like, oh, they gave me his medals or something at the service. I didn't want any of it. I didn't want the flag. I didn't want the medals. I didn't want the, insurance money. I didn't want any of it. And I was not afraid to say that, right? So he handed me these medals, handed me crap I didn't want. Like, I wanted my husband.
Right, yeah.
And someone said to me, I think it was my CAO, they're like, he doesn't get there's no Purple Heart. Where's the Purple Heart? He doesn't get it. He doesn't qualify. And I was like, that's dumb. And I just let it go because there was just too much else it didn't hit me, Sure. And then as time went on and I kept hearing him say, well, he wasn't killed by the enemy. He wasn't killed by the enemy. He wasn't killed by the enemy. And I was like, what the hell do you call somebody who uses a Claymore mine that reads front toward enemy to kill 2 officers in a combat zone? Like, that pretty much qualifies as an enemy action. What do you mean about an enemy? They're like, well, that's homicide. That doesn't count. I'm like, well, I beg to differ. They've aided and abetted the enemy. They've really feels like that qualifies as an enemy action, right? Then they go ahead and acquit the guy that we all know did it. He even signed a guilty plea and his attorneys submitted it, which in the military, a military attorney is not allowed to submit a guilty plea unless they state that they agree with it, that the evidence is overwhelming and their client will be convicted, right?
Wow.
Terrible. And then the convening authority rejected the plea, lied to us about it, told us it didn't exist, and acquitted him. And then they still said he wasn't killed by the enemy. I'm like, well, which way? Because I got arguments either way, right? So typically we'd submit a request for the Purple Heart and it'd be instantaneously denied. Like, if not within days, then within weeks, we'd get it.
Why do you think that is?
Why?
Yeah.
because they refuse to see that they state he wasn't killed by the enemy. And it's an ugly mess. They want us to go away. Like they don't want us. And so I've always walked a fine line, because it's been easy to brand me as someone who's just angry and bitter. And for a while, that's what I was, right? But always underneath, when I started doing my own investigating and exploring and researching this, I got a master's in criminal justice while the trial was going on so that I could understand the judicial system and have more credibility. I went to another capital court martial for 3 months. I sat in a courtroom in Georgia and watched another court martial and consulted with experts so I could understand and grasp like all of this, right?
Wow.
And I started to see similarities, warning signs that appeared in case after case of a military service member who would turn on other service members or turn on innocent civilians. Warning signs that went missed, and I put them up to date. So underneath it all, I was like, well, if I can identify all these warning signs, and I can take the FBI's workplace violence prevention policy and put it right next to all these warning signs and see how the FBI's workplace violence prevention policies that are implemented throughout the country, if they're applied in the military, here's a couple dozen people that would not be dead, right?
Right.
Why can I see this? So at the core of it all is like just an awareness, like, hey, at the end of the day, there's still people who serve in the military who believe that that cloth is going to protect them. Like no matter what piece of shit that person serving is, they're not going to go that far, right? And that's a dangerous line of thinking. I don't think that anybody who serves at all should have to serve alongside somebody that they're concerned about turning on them. You know, sexual assault,
Right.
even, it all falls in the same category. So I think it takes more courage and honor and strength to identify those people who either slipped in and shouldn't have gotten into the military in the first place, or transformed somewhere along the way and have become a threat, and remove them. It's the right thing to do to protect those who are serving honorably. But I'm seen as a villain, you know, for doing that, and like badmouth. Well, and it couldn't be opposite from the truth. I care about everybody who's serving and I want to protect them. So that it's
Absolutely.
twofold.
Do you see that changing at all? I mean, it seems like such a simple, clear observation that makes so much sense. Do you see any changes or any traction being made along those lines?
No, none that I've known of anyway. I would love to have my book read and taught as a case study. I would love to be able to speak to military units and just say, hey, just heads up, you know, there's a fine line between fear mongering and bashing and just putting the facts out there and planting that seed. I can't tell you how many people I've had come up to me and say, oh my gosh, you know, your book, you know, there was a guy in our unit, we used to sleep in shifts because we were afraid of him. Some guy came up to me at Fort Bragg and he was like, you know, I had a guy in my unit, this wife came up to me and said, hey, you know, you're deploying with my husband. If my husband should have an accident over there, I'll split the insurance money with you, like kind of thing. And so acknowledging that these things happen doesn't make them happen. That's not the evil, right?
Right.
The evil is there, and turning a blind eye and pretending it doesn't exist, covering it up, puts people at risk, and that's the evil. And that's just what's wrong with me. If somebody had taken those steps, if people had recognized Martinez is the guy who killed my husband and Phil, he threatened Captain Esposito's life hundreds of times. I'm going to frag that fucker, he would say, in the IG's office. So many people heard him. Nobody told Captain Esposito his life was being threatened. Nobody. All it would have taken was one person to say, hey, you know, Phil, Captain Esposito, Martinez is threatening to kill you. He's saying this, he's saying that. He would have been removed. So like, oh, but they all thought, well, this guy's a piece of shit, but he'll never do it because soldiers don't.
Well, that's human nature, right? That stuff, we don't really believe people until they actually do it. There's always these warning signs that we look back, right?
And I know it's easy in hindsight, but I believe if there were policies in place that mandated it being reported, I could see it happening once, you know, like, you know, but like hundreds of times he threatened. People were afraid to be around him. You know, it just shouldn't have happened.
Yeah. So your path, so when, you know, I can see I mean, you look at bureaucracy. I mean, I'm a huge fan of the military, and I know Eric is, but yet you know there's problems. Any organization that's going to have millions of people, you know there's going to be issues. There's bureaucracy, challenges. The wrong people are in there, but you have managed to keep your patriotism in spite of all of those challenges, and it's very admirable. But what would you say is the reason you've been able to do that, or some of the reasons you've been able to keep the patriotism front and center?
I know my husband loved our country in spite of its flaws. He was proud to serve. He was so proud to serve, and that extended into me. But, you know, there's instances, Vietnam veterans have been huge in that for me. Even when my husband, before he deployed, he was up Fort Drum training, and we had a contractor that really screwed us over, left our bathrooms like destroyed. So I was home with 4 tiny kids. Our downstairs was destroyed. He'd taken all of our money. We couldn't do it. My doorbell rings. There's like 3 dudes there. Hey, Mrs. Allen, you know, we heard what happened with the contractor, and we know your husband's deploying. We're Vietnam veterans, and would you mind if we came and fix your bathroom for you? You know, lose our brother, and we can't let this happen to him. Like, what? Yeah. You know? These Vietnam veterans I'd never met before showed up on my doorstep and spent days fixing and repairing a bathroom for free, apologizing because they didn't get it, you know, done the way that they would like to see it done. And 2 weeks later, my house was flooded with family using the only bathroom on the floor because my husband had been killed, you know, like, and so, and just the way that they've come forward, Vietnam veterans, over and over and over again. And I think they've been inspiring to other people who have come forward and stepped forward out of a sense of patriotism.
And that's just such a huge irony, isn't it?
Right.
I mean, here are these people that were just hated when they came back from the war in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And yet they,
if they had any community had a reason to hate the country, or just say to us, we dealt with it, now you do it, you know. Two Vietnam veterans gave me their own Purple Hearts in honor of my husband. They've never met me.
Amazing.
Like, so
it's just amazing. I mean, I was listening to that in your TED talk. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to talk to this lady. It's just it just tugs at the heartstrings at some of the things that you mentioned there. So that's just, so you have continued just the Vietnam vets. And the other thing I thought too is that you look at people today and you said, I became the solution for people looking for answers. I thought that was huge. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. I realized, like, so I went through a lot of, first my life tanked, and then it tanked, and then it tanked, and then it and I would create situations so that I would tank again, right? And so finally, at my lowest point, I had to make a decision. Like, I mean, decimate. We were done, like decimated. And I had to make a decision. All right, I'm going to get my life back together now. And I'm going to take these steps and be honest with myself and all this jazz. And part of that was studying people with inspiring stories for me to learn from and grow from. And I started to pay attention to how things impacted me, what I exposed myself to impacted me. And I realized when I found people with inspiring stories overcoming immense struggles, I would take lessons from their lives, but I was still getting like depressed and angry. I'm like, why, you know, what is wrong? And I realized what social media and the news and the anger and divisiveness, it was actually starting to depress me. I was like, why do people hate our country so much? Why are people so determined to be angry and pissed off and not like each other and divide us? Like, what the hell did my husband die for? Like, I have been through hell and back. My husband gave his life. My kids don't have their dad. I know hundreds of people, women personally, who have been through, you know, lost their husbands or wives and raising their kids alone, their sons, their daughters. What did we all go through this for if everybody's just gonna shit on our country? Like, I know it's flawed, but I also know that there are amazing people in this country because they have personally reached their hand out and pulled me out of the gutter time and again. And I'm like, well, instead of just sitting back and complaining that everybody's complaining, that just makes me a complete, like, part of what I hate, right? Why don't I put myself where my mouth is, you know, and spread that message and provide those resources that helped me? Because if they can reverse the tide in my mind, then those voices can help be a part of the flow that reverses it in the, in the country's mind.
Yeah.
Or when you have one of your, shitty moments, or if you're having a tough day, how do you get yourself out of it now? Besides, we already know you separate yourself, but how do you get back to like, hey, I'm happy, let's stick our hands into each other's sweatshirts and, feed ourselves with cereal?
Well, that's it, right? Like, I mean, laughter, I say this over and over. I think laughter and humor are it's one of the most underutilized tools against depression and anger and frustration. I think for every minute you're laughing, you are not allowing grief or anger or pain or fear to dominate, right? Like, you're taking that back. So if you're laughing or smiling, you physically can't be angry when you're doing that. I mean, I would be cracking jokes on the way to the funeral and in the trial just because I was like desperate, because I knew I'd be crying if I wasn't. And there's a time to cry and be angry and grieve, but there's a time that you got to hold your shit together, right? And there's a time that you have to make the decision, what am I going to give power to today? Like, what am I going to spend my energy on? Like, something happened, my kids will cry, I'll get a text like, dear kamikaze, the car is totaled. I don't know how many times I've gotten texts or calls that somebody's kids totaled my car, smashed the car or whatever. And dude, that sucks. Like, it's awful. And it, like, really, I'm like, oh my God, 4 days ago in the middle of the night, my son carried my cat into our room. He's bleeding. We're off to the emergency vet and the cat dies in the middle of the night. Like, that's terrible, traumatic. But I've just learned to like absorb it, go through my grieving process, let myself grieve. I will like time it. Barb, you got an hour and a half.
Great idea.
You got 10 minutes to go. Like, let it out, cry, go. You got 10 minutes. But at the end of this 10 minutes or 2 hours, depending on the level of trauma that I've experienced, right? You got to get your shit together. You got to get up and you got to go. Push forward and go. And I think just I will find something to accomplish that day, to have some sense of accomplishment. When my sewer tank is backed up and exploding crap all over the basement, I'm going to dig through the frozen ground for 3 hours and uncover the lid to the sewer tank so they don't charge me an extra $300 to do that. Well, this sucks and this is a disaster, but I am going to shatter my arm again almost and break through this frozen ground because I am going to achieve something over this disaster, right?
Wow.
Yeah. The frost levels in New York have got to be pretty deep. So yeah, we give you credit for that.
That happened in winter. That was not pretty. My son came home a mess. We're shoveling. But I think there's always a way to take back some power from a debilitating situation. And how much power you're going to give it over you, it's up to you. Like, you can't change.
I mean,
the car's totaled, shit's pouring in the basement. Whatever has happened is happening.
Right. Exactly.
Were you making jokes at that point? I would love to hear what joke you were making when there is shit coming into your basement. Were you like, Dave, that one's yours?
No, there were good ones. But, what are you going to do? Right. So yes, this happened.
I'd burn the house down. I would just leave and burn the house down and say it's uninhabitable. Get me out of here. I can never go back in this house.
It wasn't actually like exploding down there, but it was like, it smelled good, right? So like, I just think you waste time if you're like gonna put your anger on all the, like, all right, that happened. Okay, the car's totaled. This is smashed. This died, whatever. I can't change that. Like, that's happened. That's in the past. I'm here right now in this minute. What's the solution? How am I gonna get through this? And
did you ever hear the word or wish when people say, I wish? Do you ever, like when they say, I wish this didn't happen? I mean, have you ever said that and caught yourself on the wish word?
Yeah, I mean, I wish a lot of things. I wish a lot of things hadn't happened. I wish I hadn't made the mistakes I made and hurt my kids more and done all this. I do wish a lot of things, but you're like, okay, wish away and then.
Exactly. But the reality is, and I love what you just said, the reality is it happened, right? You can't change it. So when you're out there and you just, it's a great lesson for your kids. I mean, not everyone gets that, they just wane after, a better world, or I wish something didn't happen. I wish I had better grades, or I wish that girlfriend didn't break up with me. But you can just say, hey, it happened. Let's just deal with it. Right? Which is an awesome role model, really, as a parent.
Barb, you've got to be one of the strongest women I've ever met. Just not necessarily woman, one of the strongest people I've ever met, just emotionally. So I got to know if right now someone said you had to go get a corporate job and you're either in sales or a leadership role, how are you getting new clients with all that persistence, with the video letters you're sending out? Like, what would your strategy be?
To get a new client in a sales job?
To get clients to meet with you. Let's just start there.
Get clients to meet with me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess it depends on the client, but I would try to go directly. Give me a little more context. What am I selling?
What do you want to sell?
I mean, like say for instance, okay, we're putting our event together, right? And we had to go get corporate sponsors for that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just started cold calling people, and Eric, I would call you. Because remember, I was like, Eric, I can't cold call. I hate this. I suck at it. I don't know.
I actually went and made a few cold calls for you.
Yeah.
And got denied. So yeah, I know how tough it is.
But and I'm not good at it. I'm not good at it. And so I know when you get good at it, it no longer becomes a numbers game. But while you're learning and building those skills, it is a numbers game, because there are people who would go in maybe who are more polished and better at it than I probably did our event a disservice in some cases because I didn't know how to sell it. I didn't know how to convey it. I know I believe in it. I mean, I get on the phone with this one guy and he's like, I just magically got like the CEO of this company. I called the company and they just, okay, I'll put you in with them. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh shit. So yeah. I'm on the phone with him and he's talking to me and he's like, well, how many people are you going to have there? I'm like, well, we're going to have 1,000 people. He's like, you want 1,000 people, but how are you going to get 1,000 people? And you say you're going to do this and you say it's going to be here and you say, and I was like, look, buddy, like, yeah. I'm telling him, if this is not for you, then it's not for you. I believe in this. We have all these people. Here's these people that believe in it, that are supporting, and he went back and forth with me for like 3 weeks. Literally, he would call me, email me, send me things. And finally I was like, dude, are you in? You're out. Like, thanks for sending me this news story about like the penguins in Antarctica. I don't understand what it has to do with my event. So I need to get better at it. So my answer is I just keep swinging until I connect.
Do you do any training? Do you follow or read anything on how to improve these skills that you're trying out every day?
I know now, yes, I have studied, I have done some research and watched some courses and taken some courses and read some more books. And I understand now better that I can't go in, well, this is why I'm doing it. I have to go in and be like, hey, what do you think? Like, you love your family, you want to strengthen yourself and your family, you want to strengthen your community, you want to be a part of strengthening communities, which leads to stronger country, in general. This is our path to it. Like, this is our ripple effect, right? Would you like to be a part of this platform that is going to have this ripple effect from the inside out and lead to a stronger community? Because we are the only brand that is incorporating patriotism into personal development that I have seen.
Yeah.
So
what event are you talking about for the listeners that may not know?
This is our Great American Summit, and originally it was scheduled for April. We had decided to move it to September, and then obviously we made that decision, and like.
How awesome was that decision, though?
Well, it still cost us.
Sure.
So, we took a hit, but I almost feel like COVID is my fault because the universe looked around and was like, she doesn't get to have an event. Like, boom. She's going to punish everybody, because that's.
I love how you take responsibility for.
Yeah. We're wondering who to blame for this damn disease.
I'm sorry I tried to do
It's you.
Yeah. So, but the good news is we have a really strong team on force. So we're going to move it to 2021. And I know it's going to actually just kick some ass, even if we have to have it smaller, because I don't know, right? What is that going to look like even a year from now? Are people going to want to go to events with 1,000 people? We're probably going to have to keep it 300-400 for people's comfort level, right?
More exclusive. So tell us about the event. Who are going to be the speakers? Who are you, what are you super excited about? Who do you want there? Who's going to benefit from it?
we had some amazing speakers lined up, and the whole event, all proceeds are being donated back to organizations that support military, law enforcement, and first responders. So the organizations at the time for the event we had schedules were the Gary Sinise Foundation. That organization has directly impacted me and my family. So that's an important one to me.
Yeah.
And the Young Marines and Chris Kyle Frog Foundation was going to be one as well, and the Nine Line Foundation, who they build, homes for veterans. And then some smaller organizations that we work directly with here too. I don't know how many of those organizations are going to be on board, what their next year is going to look like, and all that.
Sure.
So we're going to restructure, but we'll be reaching out to them when we can get a hotel, a venue to.
It's definitely an unbelievable times we're living in right now.
It's not the time to go after sponsors, right? Again, every sponsor is holding back now. So
it's a great time to build relationships though, right?
Yeah.
So right. I mean, we're telling our sales team is just like, keep in touch with people, build the relationships, and when the time is right, then you can ask for business again. But now it's all about relationship building.
Absolutely. And you were organizing the women's empowerment retreat, which is train your pain, correct?
Yeah, I'm super psyched about this. I figure, look, my husband and I, we would keep having kids, and we had no business having kids, right? I mean, I sat in bankruptcy court holding a newborn, and then that was my second kid. And we went home and I had another kid. So on paper, we had no business having babies. But
one didn't mean anything. One didn't have anything to do with the other.
Right.
figure that out, right? You just do it. And so I know that now people are like, why would you be planning an event for the fall or the late summer? Like Great American Summit will be next spring. Why are you planning an event now? This is not the time. People aren't going to want to buy. I'm like, it's the perfect time to be planning this, because when this lifts, I'm going to be first out of the gate.
There you go.
With an event that women are going to be ready for. And this is, I'm bringing in Krav Maga experts to work on self-defense. I have a former top shot SWAT officer who's going to teach us firearm safety and training. We have Marie Cosgrove, who bought the company that fired her. I have Robin Benincasa, who is like badass to know, like world endurance champion. She's been dropped in mountains and jungles in Borneo, and she's a firefighter, and she's going to come work on things with us too. And it's going to be, sort of just a super different kind of event, a small event for 25 women. So it's not a lot of people, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome. But this is like a 3-day kind of in the woods somewhere.
Immersive event. The last night we'll take them somewhere nice, and celebrate. But the other nights, I'm talking like camping, and like there's no spas, there's no, and all that. And we're going to just get in there and we're going to do it. We're going to have a surprise events happen that they have to respond to. Just to really let women know that, you are capable of so much more than you think you are. You're going to take we're going to have this moment where we talk about all the things that's holding them back, the things that they're hanging on to. We're going to write them on targets. Then the SWAT officer is going to come in and teach us how to shoot those targets. We're going to shoot them like obliterate.
What a great idea.
It's going to be so great. People who think that they have nothing to live for, they don't have any fight in them. Well, they're going to have a Krav Maga person come in and put them in a hole. They're going to be like, shit, and realize that they do want to defend their lives and defend themselves, right? And learn how to get out of that and apply those lessons to whatever situation they're in. So
that's going to be an awesome event.
Yeah. For the faint of heart, it's not for the women who can't handle being cursed at or whatever. But for the women
worried about their shoes, their nails.
They want to invest in themselves and come out of this gate stronger and lead the charge and bust out in a way that nobody else can be busting out. They're going to want to be a part of this. It'd be great. I'm super excited about it.
You lit up when you started talking about it. That's great.
Yeah.
So Barb, you've done so much in the last 15 years. What are you most proud of out of all your accomplishments?
I think I am just, I don't know. I'm proud of my boys for sure, but they got where they are in spite of me, I think, really more.
How old are they now?
And because of me. I can't take credit for them. 21, 20, 18, and 16.
I mean, you can take some credit. I mean,
I'd say.
I mean, I fed them, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think just being where I am now and pulling myself out of, I think that defining moment I had where I made the decision finally to like get real with myself and be honest with myself and get it back. Like that was the moment that I can be most proud of, because I decided to take accountability for my own life instead of blaming it on all these things that kept happening to me, you know, and take it back. And being able, when I get somebody to come back to me and say, wow, you really helped me today. I learned this from you and I took what you said and did that with it. That's pretty amazing. You know?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I learned from Barb, Harry, and I'll tell you this too, when we're on camera, and Barb, you've taught me this and it's really amazing. Always make sure the camera is up, pointed down, so you don't look like you're talking down to people. Huge. I would send her videos and she'd say,
oh man,
put your camera up and look up.
All right. I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah, please.
All
Thank you. Because I feel like you're talking down to me right now.
I mean, it was one thing if you're like having a friendly conversation, but if you're like, look, I'm going to teach you this lesson, and you had it like up your nose a little bit. And
oh,
it was like,
God.
really
All right.
weird. I was like,
Stuff we don't know. And that's why she's a great
Thank
friend,
you.
because she'll tell you how it is, right?
Yeah.
With me, yeah.
We spoke about that early on. She says she doesn't like
Yep.
the bullshit. So she's
Exactly.
she's going to tell it like it is.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I've
we
been
like
a
you for
punching
that.
bag a few times. Barb, out of 139 interviews, what's like one of your most memorable moment, and with who were just a great lesson you've learned besides the stuff I've taught you?
besides the stuff you taught me.
Yeah.
And no one else is listening to it, so don't worry about anyone being offended.
Yeah, I'm sure I didn't hit the record button.
You know, I think one of the first times I was like scared to do an interview was with Rob O'Neill. I was like, Dave, what the fuck, we got Rob O'Neill? Like, oh my God, you know? And so that was the first one I was just really scared to do because I had no confidence. I was like, why is Rob O'Neill going to be talking to, you know, who am I? I'm like, oh, Rob, thank you, you know?
And for those of you who don't know, Rob O'Neill is the man who shot and killed Osama bin Laden. And for those of you who don't know who Osama bin Laden is, Google him.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people, you know, who like talk shit about Rob. But the fact is, he served and did a major service to the country. So did everyone
Absolutely.
who happens to be the guy. And he'll tell you, you know, like he's like, I came around the corner and shot a guy. My kids met him.
Yeah.
And it left an impression on him. But I was terrified to do this interview. And we were doing it live on Facebook. And I was like, just petrified. And then Rob was setting up and his brother popped in. And you could tell the two really care for each other, love each other, right? And they were bantering back and forth. And I was like, you know, why don't you just have your brother sit with you? You know, Tom, you want to sit in? They're like, what? They never got to do that before, right? And so
oh my goodness.
We were like drinking with Rob and on Facebook Live and back and forth, and brothers telling stories about him. And people were like, I've never seen Rob O'Neill like that. You know, that was amazing. And so that taught me a lesson. People like, stop putting people in these other categories or thinking they're not people, right? Rob did a lot of amazing things, but at the end of the day, he's a dude who loves his brother and likes to get real and talk about things. Like, he's still a person, right?
Yeah.
And let people be who they are. Find that aspect that they don't get to talk about. Find out what's near and dear to them that they don't ever get into, and allow them to go into that. Give them that gift of being able to get into there. When you can give your guests a gift to get into a place that they don't get to go into, they're going to remember that interview, and it's going to have meaning to them, and your audience is going to connect with it more.
You want to have Dave come sit next to you?
Do I want to have
I'd love to give you a gift of Dave. Where is he?
I'd love to give you a gift too.
Well, see, so your skills, your natural skills should help you in your selling, right? So that ability, what you just have, is probably pretty unique, since you said no one else has done this with Rob.
Yeah.
You know, in your own mindset, when you're up talking to others, talking to strangers and saying, hey, you're dealing with someone very special here, right? Because this is what I've done. And not a lot of people can say that. So you're unique there, along with the other 50 million things we spoke about, of course. But
yeah. Did you have to type in a password to get into the Zoom call?
Yeah, what is the deal with that password?
Did you have to type one in, Barb, or were you able to just join? You just clicked the link. Yeah. What was the password?
I had to type in Barb is hot for some reason.
That's an excellent password.
What's the story behind that, Barb?
The story behind Barb is hot. I'll try to make this quick because I know I've been rambling. It just started as a joke, right? I was that girl who was like ridiculously bullied and torn apart and crucified in 7th grade. Literally, I was suicidal. Like I hated myself. I hated everything. But I had no confidence. So by the time I entered high school, I was like just a doormat and really just thought I was the biggest piece of shit and unworthy of anything for a long, long time. And then, so it just became like this joke, right? And after my husband was killed, I had attached all of my self-worth to him. I was like, he's the only person that sees anything value or beautiful in me. Now there's nobody left in the world who thinks, I'm anything other than this like kind of loser, ugly, idiot, piece of shit kind of thing. So it became a joke, right? And there was an event I was at with the widows where one of the bachelors, Andy Baldwin, was there. He was one of the first bachelors from the show, the Navy officer. And, he's this young, hot guy walking around. My boys were 4 like little adorable boys. So we were like a magnet, like all the moms wanted to be with these little kids. So actually Andy was on our flight and I was kind of an asshole to him because I was like, what is the bachelor doing on our plane? The women are like slipping in their numbers. I'm like, get off of my plane, like I was, So like, he was like, what's up with her? So we just wound up talking and we were in the lobby of this hotel and he said something like, hey kids, you know what? Your mom is hot. And my kids were like, what? And he's like, oh, you have a hot mom. He's like, your mom is hot. My kids are like, what? And there were some other widows around and they're like looking. I'm like, Andy, shut up. Like, you're going to get me killed. I'm like, shut up. And he's like, no, I'm going to say it. So he starts screaming, Barb Allen's in the lobby of this giant hotel.
Oh my goodness.
Barb Allen's smoking hot. Like screaming it, like hundreds of people could hear him. And it became this joke to my kids. And then it just became a joke to see how many people I could get to say it over the years, like work it into radio shows and news shows and talks from stages. I've had DJs. I have a video with Tony Orlando going, Barb Allen is hot. Like, when I met him at an event.
Tony Orlando?
Yeah. He was on a flight too. And I thought I was nice to him. But when I ran into him years later, he's like, I remember you. You were very angry. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm like, I thought I was nice on that flight. He's like,
that was one of your better days.
Really? So, but then I have a video with him going, Barb Allen smoking, Barb Allen is hot. Like, I'm like, so it's just a joke because every time I can see it, or somebody says it, I'm like sending it back in time to that 10-year-old girl who wanted to kill herself because she thought she was a piece of shit. So it's really.
She turned out all right. That's for sure.
She turned out just
It sounds heated, right? People are like, why you do that? I'm like, because it's not for that 10-year-old
It's just a shame. I mean, girls, boys, we all can deal with it. But I mean, you always feel bad for the girls that just so much of society depends on that stuff. But that's for another day. But you made it out well. And congratulations.
Barb, so I'm going to ask you, because I know you've asked a bunch of people, what does American dream mean to you?
You plagiarizer, you.
I was looking for questions.
That's a great question. To me, the American.
Feel free to use it, by the way.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. Here's what and why we're so big on that on our show too, and why we ask all our guests that, because I think it's under attack because everybody gets their panties in a wad because they think I'm telling you what your American dream should be, right? And that's not the case. I think the American dream is about potential and opportunity and giving back. I think it's your life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all that, but it's also your obligation to turn around and help other people achieve that as well. So I think that the American dream is about your own opportunity to grow and learn and live up to your potential and provide for your family. But I think the key part that's missing in the talks of it is the responsibility to help others do so as well and become valuable contributing members in their own lives and in society. And that's how we build a bigger community, a better country. And that's how America lives the American dream, itself.
Yeah, I'm loving it. Actually, right now, so many, we're amidst this COVID-19 shutdown, and it's so great to see how many companies stepped up and gave up their factories and materials to be able to test people and develop testing and drugs. And, that is a great answer, Barbara. And I did steal that question from you. So I have one of my own that I'm going to be asking every guest, and that's, what legacy do you want to leave behind? What does Barb want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for going all in. Like, that's it. Like, just, if you're going to do it, do it. Just go all in. Find that thing you believe on. I want my kids to go all in on themselves, on their lives, on the country, whatever that is. That's it. I want to be an example of how to take that thing and just go all in. And you get bumped and bruised and makes like you get, I want to get into that grave. Like, ever hear the phrase about a cowboy, in the Old West, they'd be like, that horse had been rode hard and put up wet, I know your mind is going to go somewhere dirty with that, right?
No.
Yes.
No.
Find out of the dirty part and then
we're thinking of horses right now.
Think about a horse. Don't think about.
Wait, you're literally talking about a horse?
Yes, but that's what they say. That horse has been rode hard and put up wet. So that's what I want, Eric. I want to go into I want to be rode hard and put up wet.
All right, this show is definitely getting marked explicit.
But
I had to mute myself.
We stopped recording. We just hit pause for the last 10 seconds. Don't worry about a thing. No one
else.
else
We did not. And I am not editing that out just because I don't know how.
When you're rich and famous, we're going to bribe you with this.
When Barb's running for president.
Exactly.
Oh my God, that was hilarious, Barb.
I heard.
Yeah.
So what about, okay, so it sounds great, right? Hey, go all in. It's very, very motivating and inspirational, but it's scary as shit to go all in. How do you get past that fear? I mean, you've gotten past a lot of different points where you were afraid and you just stepped over it, but the listeners right now, their go all in varies, right? There's someone who's listening on their first day of a sales job and they're scared to go in and make a cold call or pick up the phone and call somebody. There's probably a guy who's, has a huge crush on a love of his life and he's afraid to ask her out. How do you go? Somebody wants to write a book. Harry wants to do this show without a shirt on. How do you go all in and just get past that fear?
I think you have to place your fears side by side and see which one is worse, right? Like, pick your fear. For me, I'm more afraid of what I will miss out on by not swinging and missing. I know that, I think that's where what happened in my life, losing my husband, having all the trauma that followed afterwards, that's where it also provided me some gifts along the way, because if you had asked me, can you survive all of this? I would have said, oh, hell no, I can't.
Right.
But, here I am, right? And so I would say to people, look back on what is the worst thing that has happened in your life. Like, close your eyes, go to that place for 10, 15 seconds. Think of the worst thing that has happened, the worst pain you've experienced in your life. You have failed before. You have hurt, you've been broken up with, you've been dumped, you've lost somebody you loved, you've been physically injured, you've been assaulted, you've been robbed, you have had something terrible happen to you. And if you haven't, then you're living in some kind of freaky bubble, right? So think of something that you have survived already, and then put it up against this. If I can survive that and I'm here today, who cares if I get laughed out of a room, right?
Right.
I'm going to survive that too. Take all those survival skills you use to get past that thing, no matter how clumsily, ugly, whatever, how much it hurt. And I can take that pain, what's that pain? And put it up against that and say, but then on the other hand, what happens if I swing and connect, right? Mm-hmm. Do I want to live like wondering what would have happened? That's the worst way to live. The worst.
Wow. What about, so being aware of that, being consciously aware and being able to go back and compare those two such a huge lesson, and I really appreciate you teaching that. Harry, you have a question for Barb?
Just where would you say that of all the things that you're doing outside of your boys, because I'm sure they're special and they get to hear you all the time and you're motivating them, but where do you feel like you're making the biggest impact with people?
I think now these days it's virtually, right? But I think just more and more lately, I've had people saying to me, sending me messages or saying me like, thank you, thank you for just keeping it real, for being vulnerable how you are, with your online content, and letting us know that, you're not, thank you for just sharing all the things that most people wouldn't want to share.
Yeah.
And pulling the lesson from it and teaching us how to, use that, because I think that's where it is, because more and more people are saying that to me, which is just surprising to me when I hear it, because I don't really think it's like all that great, but apparently that's what people need to hear right now. That's what they're connecting with. So
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So how do people, sorry, go ahead here.
No, I was just saying the things that you said, just so you know, that Eric and I are like, we're taking down all these notes and we're saying, holy cow, she's such an inspiration. Why do I have these hangups about trying this or that? So it does not go unnoticed, even with me.
I have to remind myself that too,
Yeah.
days. I have to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so scared to do this. I'm like, well, I'm telling people to do it, and oh yeah, okay. So, like I have to remind myself too to do it.
Well, just listen to this podcast over and over again.
I don't know if I'm going to listen to this.
Because the horse thing went away. Don't worry about the horse anymore. That's long gone.
Nope, it is not gone. It's probably still there. Barb, how do people get in touch with you or learn more about you and all the fun stuff you got going on?
Thank you. Well, the one-stop shopping is American Snippets. You can find us on Instagram there, and on Facebook, and online as well. Our podcast, that's what it's called, on all the podcast platforms. But if you just want to go directly straight to me, hit me up on Instagram is the best way. It's Barb Allen Speaks.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Barb. It's been a really fun conversation, and I really enjoyed it. And by the way, for all of our listeners, all 5 of you, I think at this point, if you're feeling patriotic, Barb is going to be putting on an amazing event. It's going to be set to inspire, bring patriotism back into our hearts where it belongs. And it's set for spring of 2021. So I'm not sure when you're listening to this. She's going to need some sponsors. She wants people to back it up. She needs people to back it up. And if you want your company name or your name on all the cool stuff and videos and in front of some amazing speakers that are going to be there, please be sure to connect and help Barb out. Barb, I want to thank you. You've been, this has just been a great conversation, and you're such an inspiration. I just love you, Barb.
Right back at you. Thank you both. I'm sorry, Harry. This was a great, this was a rough introduction.